No answer.
Here we go. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right, I didn't have the mute button.
It's all right.
So are we doing this just by microphone or video as well?
Video as well. Are you not?
I can. Oh yes, it's just.
Well, I will ask you to keep just listening, just being there. You'll be able to. You'll be. If you could mute, please, because your application is not up until it's number 2. Yeah. So if you could now mute, and then we will tell you when we're starting.
Okay, that's fine. How long do you think this meeting will be, in your experience? I'm second on the agenda.
Well, I'm always very dubious here, because if I say, oh, look, it's going to be a very quick meeting, it goes on. Yeah. So it should not, in theory, be very long.
Okay.
So that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want, the gremlins are always around at these meetings. Mm-hmm. So
okay, fine. That's fine. I will now mute and just listen with interest.
Thank you. Right. I'll now say good morning to everybody, and good morning to any members of the public. Welcome to this video conferencing meeting of the Development Committee on the 15th of October. I would like to say, I think we've only got one person. This is Mr. Smith, who's registered to speak today. So welcome to you. I have officers with me today who will support us in our presentations and technical advice. We've got the development manager, senior development manager, Officer Sarah Ashurst, who is overseeing this meeting, standing in for Philip Rowson, who's our development chief. I don't know what you call him, really. What's the name for him?
Head of planning.
What planning?
He's the head of planning.
Head of planning. I can't get these. Well, anyway, there we go. Our legal advisor, Noel Doran, who's here to give us some help. Morning. And we have 2 officers from Democratic Services who help with the actual running of the meeting. We have Linda Yaram and Emma Denny, and they look after the technical side, time the speakers, and take the minutes. The voting for this meeting will be taken as if it's a recorded vote. I mean, you know this anyway. So Emma will call out your name and you say for, against, or abstain. If you wish to leave the meeting for a short time, could you please do it between the applications? Because for members of the committee, you all know this, but I repeat it every time. If you stay out, if you wander out during the committee, during the discussions for the applications, and you don't come in, you don't ask for a time to go out, then you can't vote. Could I now ask all of the people who are logged in, who are not members of the committee, to please mute and turn off your audio, your video camera. Is that okay? How many members of the committee have we got here, Emma?
I'm currently still waiting for Councillor Stockton and Councillor Mancini-Boyle. I've just asked Matt to contact them to see if there's an issue at all, because I haven't had any emails, but everyone else is present, with Councillor Toy substituting for Councillor Lloyd.
Oh, right. So do you wish me to carry on?
Yes, I think the initial parts of the meeting, I'm hoping if there are any issues with either Gerard or Clive, that we can get them to join the meeting within the next couple of minutes, so it shouldn't affect their consideration of the applications. Hoping Matt can resolve that. I haven't heard from either of them, so I don't know
Well,
there
if
is a
they
problem.
come in late, they won't be able to vote, will they?
Not if they miss the discussion on the applications, but
No,
hopefully
absolutely.
we can get them in within the next sort of couple of minutes. So
Can I just remind members of the committee that you have 5 minutes to speak, and Linda will indicate to me if you are going over that time. It's just to keep the meeting shorter, and it's a statutory requirement, I think, Noel, isn't it? We've said 5 minutes for members, 5 minutes for local members, and 3 minutes for applicants and members of the public.
Yes, that's set out in the constitution.
Yeah. So just reminding everybody, because we can all, I mean, me particularly, like the sound of my own voice, we can all go on slightly longer than we should have done. So just to report. So we're going to start. I'll go through return to your agendas, please. I've told you my chairman's introductions. If I could also just tell you again that we have 2 extra meetings. Linda, can you just reiterate that? Because I know you have sent some emails around just to re-inform the members. Are you there, Linda?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I was just having trouble unmuting from the.
There we go.
There is an additional meeting on the 29th of October, and we may also have another meeting on the 26th of November. Both of those are on the reserve dates, and it's possible that the 10th of December meeting may be cancelled, but we will confirm that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we all clear with this now? I think the 10th of December has been provisionally cancelled because of the changeover system. Isn't this so, Sarah?
We're just kind of finalising, Madam Chairman, whether we can actually keep that committee running. So I'm hopeful that we can, so don't cancel it out of your diaries just yet. I'm just waiting for IT to confirm what availability we'll have for kind of existing applications, but I will confirm in the next couple of days. But if you can keep it in your diaries, that would be
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have kept mine, so there we go. Right, thank you. Now, to receive apologies for absence and details of any substitutes, please, Emma.
we've received apologies from Councillor Nigel Lloyd, and Councillor John Toy is substituting for him.
Thank you. Now, if we could turn to the minutes of the last meeting on the 1st of October, I know Linda sent these round last week. I haven't asked for a repeat because it was the only the one submission for, was it Smallborough? So have we all read them, the minutes? Are there any problems? Right, can we please have someone to propose that we accept? Councillor Varley, seconded by Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Would you just please raise your hands so that we can see if it's unanimous? Unanimous, Emma.
Yes, thank you.
Items of urgent business. I haven't got any. Have any been submitted, Emma?
No items of urgent business.
Right. Now, we have no requests for deferment. We have no reason to alter the order of the business, so that will go ahead as shown. So the first one will be Bristol, the second one Walsingham. Now, declarations of interest. Anybody any pecuniary and or non-pecuniary interests on the members from the members of the committee? Yes, Councillor Cushing.
obviously, Madam Chairman, we all know the two applicants for the second application, so I'm just assuming we log that and note it, but I thought I'd raise it as a point.
Yes, thank you. Yes. I think we made an assumption there, which was naughty. We should really have said, thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Cushing. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Just exactly the same as Councillor Cushing, Madam Chairman. We all know the applicant in the second planning application.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like I was on a different meeting.
Well, I must say technology does seem to override most of our meetings somewhere along the line, but we seem to just poddle on as ever. We're still missing one member of the committee, but we will now go to the applications. The first application is Bristol Pier /19/1648, which is on page 1 of your agenda, and I will now ask who's going to present this. I thought Officer Watson was going to present, but he's not here.
He is, Madam Chair.
Where is he?
I'm here, Chair.
Are you? I can't see you, can I?
My video's on.
Oh, there you are. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, Daryl. If you'd like to carry on then and present for the application.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As the Chair said, this is agenda item 7, page 1 on the agenda. It's a proposal for 9 dwellings in a mix of 2-storey houses and bungalows and an associated access road. There's some updates to the report, which are since it was written, which I'll go through now. There's a typo on page 6 under the subheading Design, Housing Density and Housing Mix. This first sentence should read, in respect of housing mix and housing type, policy HO1 of the core strategy requires that for development of 5 or more dwellings, 40%, and then the rest of the sentence carries on as written. Secondly, the applicant has confirmed their agreement to the SAC payment, which is £50 per dwelling. Thirdly, neither the applicant or someone on their behalf will be speaking today, but instead they've sent a statement which office has been requested to read. So with your permission, Chair, I'll read that out.
Yes.
Okay. This is a statement from Brad Bamfield, the director.
Just a minute, please, Daryl. Can we just go through the normal procedure and then I'll ask you, is this a statement in support?
Yes, it's on behalf of the applicant.
Right.
Yeah,
well, we
just speak today.
Yeah, okay. If you could just hold your horses for the minute, then. Okay. Are you going to carry on just with the normal presentation of the application, please, before we pass on?
Yeah, the main issues are set out on page 5 of the agenda. I draw members' attention to the fact that permission for residential development of this site was granted in April 2017, and it is likely that this permission is still extant, although that would have to be confirmed for a certificate of lawfulness, for, necessary. As can be seen from the slide on page 6 of the presentation, the access from Orchard Close is the same as was approved as is now proposed when you look at the amended site layout plan on page 4. The site layout would allow for the existing hedging to be retained, and conditions are recommended relating to this as were attached to the previous permission. That's all I've got to say on the application itself. Obviously, I'll answer any questions. So would you like me to read out the applicant statement now, Chair?
No, we have to go. There is a small procedure, Daryl. We'll go through that first and then I'll tell you when I need you to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I don't believe there are, but I'm going to ask, are there any parish submissions? No parish or town council submissions or people to attend? Linda?
No, we have no submissions from the parish council.
Any objecting statements?
No, we have no objecting statements. Thank you.
Right, Darryl, now you're on.
Thank you, Chair. This is a statement from Brad Bamfield. He's the Director of Options for Homes Limited, who are the applicants. He says, we had a previous approval for 12 units on the site, planning permission reference PF 15/1746, dated April 2017. However, condition 1 stated a 2-year expiration period for the development's completion. Due to numerous reasons, we found it impossible to fund the project as it was designed. To be viable, for we needed to redesign the development. Right, it's not written very well there. After discussion with the planning team, it was decided that it was best to resubmit a full application, as the changes we requested were considered larger than minor amendments. Although COVID has had an impact on everyone during this application period, we have not been idle and have had extensive discussions with Homes England about funding, and subject to planning, they are keen to see a formal financing application from us. We are also in advanced negotiations with Homes England for a smaller development of ours in Norwich city centre, and that is due to start demolition on the 1st of December. There are obvious advantages for Homes England and our construction programme if we can run with the 2 projects, Bristol and Norwich city centre, simultaneously. We have also begun negotiations with our local subcontractors to work across both projects where possible. For example, the groundworks contractor is keen to secure both projects as their forward order books are under threat by COVID and other industry issues. Because of our initial discussions and pending full application with Homes England, we have been able to agree another 2-year planning period with the planning officer, as we are confident that the new funding will allow a quick start and completion, reducing any disruption, and bring the new homes into occupation as soon as possible. While the number of homes are reduced from 12 to 9, we are still providing a range of homes that have a housing need in the area, and with the mix of housing types, we will have a thriving mini community which will enhance the village. Of course, the result is a more open space around the homes, reduced density, meaning less impact in the immediate area, as was previously approved. That's the end of Mr. Bramfield's statement. I'd just like to clarify the comment about the 2-year expiration. That was the 2 years to commence the development. It's not a condition requiring it to be completed in 2 years, and they said they would accept a condition requiring it to commence in 2 years now, but again, that wouldn't require it to be completed in 2 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Officer Watson. Now, the local member is Councillor Stenton, and I believe she's not here.
No, she sent her apologies, Madam Chairman.
Right. Has she submitted any form of statement?
No, I haven't received anything from her.
Okay, fine. So now we go to members. Because you know what I'm like with this little green hand or whatever colour it is, which I can never understand, could you please wave your hand at me? I find that's far more sensible for me. So if you wouldn't mind, if you wish to speak. Yes, Councillor Mancini Boyle, I can see you waving there.
Excited as normal, Madam Chair. Just one small point of clarification from Officer Watson. I've noticed in the Parish Council response that they've mentioned access through the grounds of Holly House. Could Darryl please tell me what that's all about? Because they seem to have concerns about the access onto the lane. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Officer Watson, if you'd like to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Holly House lies to the west of the site. If you look at the aerial image on page 2 of the presentation, where the red line sort of stops on the west or the right, or on the right hand side, Holly House is there. And I think what was being suggested was access through Holly House was a dwelling on the site at the moment. But I would just reiterate the point that the access has been approved previously in this position. There's no objection from the Highway Authority, and the site allocations DPD suggests the access should be off Orchard Close as is proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does that answer you, Councillor Mancini Boyle?
It does. Thank you very much.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett has a little hand in my view. Are you wishing to say something? No, okay. I can't hear you, you're muted.
That was when it hadn't disappeared after I seconded the minutes, Madam Chairman. I think
Okay.
it's gone now.
No, it hasn't, not on my screen. Anybody else can see her little hand waving there? Perhaps it's just me. Okay, anybody else wish to speak on this application? First of all, Councillor Pearce, then Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I was on the original site visit for this, and I understand the access problems and also the problems that were discussed at the time regarding the hedging surrounding the site. But overall, I think this is a reasonably good application for a service village. And I think, you know, and I've said this before, we do need to look after the indigenous local population as much as we can. And I think, you know, the mix of housing, you know, does well for this application, and I will support it. Thank you.
Are you proposing to support?
Yes, I will
Okay.
propose, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think all of us agree that supporting affordable housing is one of the key things, issues that we need to address within the district. So on that basis, I am also supportive of the application. I can't see anything in here that would require a refusal, so I'd be happy to second it.
Thank you. Can I just go to Officer Watson? Where are the affordable houses?
No, sorry, Chair. There's no affordable housing provision with this development because it's below the 10 dwelling threshold. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Councillor Cushing, does that alter your view?
No, I'm sorry, I misread it. But having said that, looking at the size of the housing, certainly they look like they would be in the realm of housing stock that people trying to get onto the housing ladder would be able to afford.
Right, so thank you. So you're seconding the proposal. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes, Councillor Fredericks.
Hello, yes, I would be very happy if they were affordable housing, but have we got an assurance that they are going to be affordable for local people to buy?
Councillor Watson? Officer Watson?
No, they're not. There'll be market housing, but there is a mix of dwellings as referred to in the report, but they wouldn't meet the definition of affordable as in the glossary to the National Planning and Policy Framework. So there's no, because as discussed in the report, there's no requirement to provide affordable housing because it's below the 10 dwelling threshold. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Does that answer you? Councillor Fredericks, you wish to come back?
Not really, no. It doesn't really answer my question because we have a development in Munsley that has a mix of dwellings and they're not affordable for local people. So, no, it doesn't. But the payment that is made is £50 per house, is it?
Yes. I can
And
answer that.
what does that go to?
That comes directly to the council, doesn't it, Officer Watson?
It's a payment towards sort of special areas of conservation, which is a European designation, and it's to sort of go in a pot to reduce the impact on that designated area from visitor pressure. It's not a policy we normally apply at the moment, but there is specific reference to it in the site allocations DPD for this site. So that's why it's been requested in this case.
So that's £450 that's going to be donated.
That's correct.
Yes,
Sure.
this is the first time I've seen this actual designation and application being put into force, so that's quite interesting that that has actually come up. Councillor Fredericks, once an application is made with below 10 houses, which is what Officer Watson said, there is no recognition now to supply affordable housing. So, you know, you take your view on that one, I'm afraid. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Heinrich and then Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what we have here is a site with existing permissions, and what we're getting is a new application, almost ident, except that it's less crowded. I can't see any real reason why we should reject it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Yeah, if I can help, Madam Chairman, with this £50 per house, this is something, a recommendation that's come out of the Norfolk Coast AONB partnership together with the Wash and West Norfolk Marine Partnership. And as Mr. Watson has quite rightly said, it is to mitigate against visitor pressure within these areas of special interest. And it will help to, if you like, repair footpaths and do everything that the excess visitor pressure on these special areas to put them right and to try and help out. We are working to do this actually county-wide, and I'm very, very pleased to see it here. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Anybody else before we go to the vote? Yes, Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just around the affordable housing thing, just disappointing really, because if they'd have gone with the original 12, that would have been above the 10, and therefore we'd have got some affordable housing. They couldn't afford that, but now they're saying they can afford 9, which means they've not got the affordable housing. So whilst I think I will be supporting the application, I think we need to be aware that what's gone on has not helped the affordable housing situation. It's something that we maybe need to sort of consider when we get applications like this in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Toy, but unfortunately, as the legislation and rules exist at the moment, any applications for 9 and under do not have to supply affordable housing. It's up to them, really. If they wish to supply affordable housing, we'd be absolutely delighted, but the chances of such a thing happening, unless they are a housing association, are relatively small. Yes, you wanted to just reply to that, Councillor Toy. I will allow you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it wasn't. As I say, I will support the application as it stands. It's just that had it stayed at the original 12, which is part of this application, is saying that it's already got or had permission for 12, then there would have been a requirement to deliver.
Yes, thank you. I think we are aware of that. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on that, yes, it is disappointing. I agree with Councillor Fredericks and Toy. However, I do have a bit of hope that at least these may be first-time buyers' homes. So at least somebody's getting on the ladder at some point. Thank you.
Yes, we can but live in hope, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Now, we're going to go to the vote. You know how this works. We have a proposer to support the application and to go with the officer's recommendation for approval. Now, the only question I will ask, Officer Young, I'm slightly concerned about these hedges because, as Councillor Pearce said, I was also at the original 2015 visit, and there is quite a large, substantial hedge which borders Orchard Close. Is it? I believe it goes down to 3 foot. Is that enough? Yes, Officer Ashurst.
Chris is here to speak on the next application if members have any questions around the list of building issues on the next application. So I'll take this point if I may. The landscape officer has reviewed this application and they are content that that condition that we are applying to retain the hedge, but to keep it to that height will be acceptable. Obviously, it will thereafter kind of be maintained by the people in those dwellings, but it will be required to be at that height. I don't believe it is 3 foot. I think
No, sorry, it's 3 meters. I beg your pardon.
which is actually quite a significant hedge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm more than happy that that would be adequate. Thank you.
Right, so we'll go to the vote. So this is to for the approval of this application, and with regard to the conditions as listed on page 9. Emma, could you read our names out, please? Don't forget.
Yes, Madam Chairman. I will call your names out alphabetically in turn, and you just need to indicate whether you're voting for, against, or abstaining for the application. So, Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Fredericks.
Abstain.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Toy.
For.
Councillor Varley.
For.
And Councillor Yassimi.
For.
So that's 12 in favour, Madam Chairman, and 1 abstention. So that is carried.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So that's carried. We now go on to our second application. Are we all ready? This is Walsingham PF/20/0590 on page 11 of your agenda. And the application is being presented by Officer Jane Owen. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. This is item 8 in the agenda, reference PF 20/0590, set out on pages 11 to 20 in the report pack, together with accompanying presentation slides. The proposal is for the erection of a 1.5-storey, 2-bedroom detached dwelling, which is proposed to be sited on part of the rear garden area of 18 Bridewell Street, which is in the settlement limit of Walsingham. 1 parking space is proposed. The host dwelling is a Grade 2 listed building, as I said, lies in the conservation area, and there are 3 other Grade 2 listed buildings in close proximity to the site. There are 2 updates arising from reconsultation on revised plans. Firstly, the Parish Council continue to object to the proposal on 4 grounds, namely overdevelopment in the historic conservation area, concern about a lime rendered building in this setting, surrounded as it is by brick and flint buildings, the loss of garden space, which would have a detrimental impact, and the access onto Bridewell Street is unsafe. The view of oncoming traffic and of pedestrians in both directions is obscured by the adjacent building, and the road is narrow. In addition, 1 further representation has been made, and it has been requested that this is read out as the objector is not able to attend the meeting today. Would you like me to read that now? Madam Chair? Hello, can you hear me?
Muted, Pauline.
You're on mute, Pauline.
Madam Chair?
So, sorry, what did you say? Was there an objection?
Sorry, I have an objection, a representation that's been made. It's been requested that it's read out as the objector can't be here at the meeting. I was just asking whether you wanted to read that now, or
No. We go through our procedure. I'll tell you when that's when you can read that out, Jane. Okay, carry on.
Okay. Right. So, in terms of the presentation, then, the main issues for consideration are whether the development is acceptable in principle, design, layout, and impact on heritage assets, highways impacts, residential amenity, landscaping, and ecology. The site is within the settlement limit and is therefore acceptable in principle. In terms of the impact on heritage assets, this is assessed on pages 15 and 16 of the report. In summary, policy EN8 requires development proposals to preserve or enhance the character and appearance of designated assets and their settings through high quality sensitive design. Section 66 and 72 of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act requires special regard to be paid to the desirability of preserving listed buildings or their settings, and special attention to be paid to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character and appearance of a conservation area. Further, paragraph 196 of the NPPF states that where a development proposal will lead to less than substantial harm to the significance of a designated heritage asset, this harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. In this case, harm has been identified, which is discussed in the report, which is considered to translate into less than substantial harm to the significance of designated heritage assets. It is not considered that there are any public benefits in this case which would outweigh the harm identified, and the proposal would therefore be contrary to paragraph 196 of the NPPF and policy EN8 of the core strategy. In relation to highways, the highways have raised some concerns which are also reflected in representations received with regard to the suitability of the site access to provide vehicular access in close proximity to the pedestrian access beyond. However, this is not within the adopted highway, and this falls outside the remit of the Highways Authority. Similarly, the Highways Authority comment that whilst the access onto Bridewell Street benefits from suitable visibility of oncoming vehicles, there is little provision for pedestrians and other vulnerable road users. However, ultimately no objections are raised by the Highways Authority, subject to a condition to secure the on-site parking area as shown on the plan. In terms of landscaping, I just want to highlight that the site currently comprises an undeveloped walled garden plot within the historic core of the village. Walsingham Conservation Area character appraisal highlights there are a few trees or areas of open space within the historic core. The site currently hosts 11 mature, mostly fruit trees set amongst rough grass, which given the rarity of natural open space provides significant biodiversity value and habitat within the built village core. To facilitate the development, 6 of the 11 trees on the site are proposed to be removed, and while some mitigation is proposed for this loss, namely 2 fruit trees and a selection of shrubs and climbers, these would be located within the rear garden of the proposed dwelling and would not therefore make a wider amenity contribution by being visible from Bridewell Street when looking up Chapel Yard. Finally, amenity is considered in the report. Officers don't consider the proposal would have any significant detrimental effect and would accord with policy EN4. The proposal would accord policy EN4. And in terms of ecology, the proposal is supported by an ecological assessment and its conclusions, recommendations and proposals for enhancements are considered acceptable and in accordance with policy EN9 of the core strategy. The application is recommended for refusal and the recommended reasons for refusal are set out on page 20 of the report. That concludes what I have to highlight in relation to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Owen. I now go to Linda. Have we any parish statements here? Linda? Oh, there you go. You're there.
Yeah, it's worked now. No, Madam Chairman, we have no parish statements.
We have an opposing statement, which back to you, Jane, which you wish to read out.
Okay. So the representation from a neighbour, he says, I note that 2 sets of revised plans have been submitted in connection
Can I
with
just
this
stop you a
application.
moment? Jane, can I just stop you a moment? Have you a name for
Yes.
this person? Would you please tell us, because this has to go into the minutes.
Okay, Mr. Postgate.
Right, thank you. You may continue.
My concern is about the real risk of damage to the listed building which I own, identified in my previous comments, created by vehicles reversing into or out of the site of the proposed development. In order to mitigate this risk, it was essential that the proposed turntable should be installed, maintained, kept accessible and used in order to turn vehicles around on site so that they need neither to enter nor to exit the site in reverse gear. The second set of plans submitted retained the turntable, but there was still an issue over accessibility to that turntable if two vehicles were parked on site. The more recent set of plans show that the turntable has been removed entirely, thus making it impossible for any vehicle parked on site to be turned on site as required. This will result in vehicles either entering or exiting the site in reverse gear, increasing the risk of damage to my listed building. The risk is not an imagined risk, but is born out of experience in recent years of actual damage sustained when vehicles reverse in the constricted space available in that part of Chapel Yard. Vehicle tracking diagrams would further demonstrate, I think, that there is in practice insufficient space in that part of Chapel Yard for vehicles entering and exiting the site of the proposed development to manoeuvre in reverse gear. That concludes the statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opposing statements, Linda?
No, we have no other statements in opposition to that.
Right, we have two supporters. Mr. Smith, you may join us.
Yes, I am here.
Can we see your face, please?
Oh, right, I will turn it on. I'll click the button. I cannot start video. Anything on your side?
No, nothing. We can hear you fine. If you can't come on, that's okay.
For some reason it's been blocked.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Well, don't worry. As long as we've got your voice and we can hear your statement.
Oh, that's a shame. I had your camera all set up in the right angle for the background. Okay, shall I just get on with my statement then in that case?
Yeah, you know you have 3 minutes.
Yes,
When you come to the end of your time, Mr. Smith, Officer Yarman will tell you.
Okay, actually my video's coming on, isn't it?
Is that?
Okay.
Nothing's happening here, so.
Oh, what a shame. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak on behalf of my client and the applicant. In response to the authorities, only 2 points noted for the rejection. The applicant wishes to state the following. Driven by consultee comments, various revisions have been made to find a design that would be acceptable to planning, with ever increasingly smaller and modest designs. Planning has stated that the proposed development is acceptable in principle on page 15. The proposed development is compliant with highways, amenity and ecology policies. The proposed development would fill a gap in the street scene, making Chapel Yard's built environment feel complete and more cohesive. It would be in keeping with the close-knit nature of Chapel Yard and indeed much of Walsingham. The proposed development is intended to be a high-quality addition to the housing stock in an ever-increasingly popular village. Care has been taken to ensure that the dwelling will have a minimal impact upon the neighbouring properties, ensuring that there will be no unacceptable overlooking of the neighbours. The design is compact and little of the building will be visible from the gardens of neighbouring properties. The garden in itself is entirely walled or fenced, and hence it is difficult to appreciate what local value will be placed on this area. The garden is just an unused plot, and apart from the wall, has no heritage assets. Separating the garden will not cause any harm to the host property nor the local wildlife. The environmentalists noticed that no breeding birds nest, old or new, nor protected species. Their report also states that there was a low level of bird activity at the time of the survey. For the pedestrian, the view of the development is extremely limited from Bridewell Street. From Chapel Yard, only the upper part of the dwelling will be visible because of the boundary wall. By filling most of the site width, the proposed development will help to complete and enhance the street scene in Chapel Yard by filling a gap and improving the close-knit nature and arrangement of the buildings, making the yard more akin to the rest of the conservation area. The masonry wall and rendered upper part of the building mirror opposite to what has been stated before, mirror and complement the appearance of the Richelieu's, I don't know if I got the pronunciation right, house directly opposite. Together, both buildings would form strong visual symmetry. And finally, the two trees to the front of the site could be described as scrawny or scraggy at best, near the end of their life. Due to this and that they are located behind a 6-foot wall, they provide little, if any, softening and could eventually result in its collapse if left alone. Given that the site is walled or fenced, all landscape mitigation will be carried out within the site and not be able to be seen externally anyway. And so that's really, due to these reasons, the applicant does not consider the 2 points raised warrant a valid cause for refusal. And that ends my speech.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We still didn't see you, so there we are. You'll have to remain a mystery to us.
That's a shame. It's nice to see a few faces on the other side anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Cushing, you wish to speak in favour?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm doing so as obviously the applicant can't, as the local member and can't speak for himself, and I am a neighbouring member and indeed actually live within the ward, and Walsingham is well known to me. It's only 2 villages over from where I actually live. Really just picking out, sort of reinforcing some of the points that Mr. Smith has actually made. First off, the report makes it clear that this supports SS1 and SS2, so there's no reason in principle why a development cannot take place in this particular location. The 2 reasons given for refusals are EN4, EN8 and EN4, and I'll come to EN8 first, which says it result in less than substantial harm. The development itself is small and compact, has a white rendered wall and a clay right to. And what I'd like to refer committee members to, if you look on our pack that we've been sent, pages 52 and 53, as Mr. Smith rightly stated, most of the development on the ground level will be shown as a flint wall. That mirrors the flint wall opposite in the white building opposite, and obviously the white lime coloured wall also mirrors the building opposite. So on that basis, it doesn't to me look in any shape or form out of keeping, and indeed the red tiled roof reflects the houses on, if you look on page 53, on Bridewell Street. So to my mind, I certainly think it looks in keeping. I think it was really smart in development. If you were actually going in there and it had already been built, I have to say, I doubt you'd even give it a second glance at your products. I do think it would actually blend well with the existing environment. And also, you'd hardly notice it because the main street down there is Bridewell Street. And if you're walking down there, I mean, you literally, it would only be visible for what, I don't know, a couple of seconds, if that. So that I don't think it's intrusive. So my own views, EN8 is a subjective measure, and I don't think actually it should be refused on those grounds. Then we come to EN4, and in the report itself, it states that it mainly seems to result around the loss of 6 trees. And I believe you look at those 6 trees, the agricultural impact assessment report states that 2 of those trees are in poor condition and the other 4 are in a low amenity value. So I struggle to see that an application could be refused on that basis, particularly as the applicant has made clear that extra 2 trees would be planted in lieu of those. So overall, in summary, I would just say anyone who comes into this committee is due a fair hearing. It's a small development. I don't really agree. I certainly don't agree with the reasons for refusal. On that basis, I do think committee members should look at this seriously and indeed give it their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Obviously, we don't have the local member speaking here, and Councillor Cushing spoke in favour instead. Yes, Councillor Officer Ash has. Can I just ask you, is Officer Young going to speak anyway, or does he stand in to the side in case he's asked to speak?
I'm sure he may want to kind of express some opinion on this application, but he's also here to answer any of members' questions, and he may want to follow on from what I'm about to say to members.
Okay.
A reminder that the consideration of heritage assets is more than a policy consideration. It's a legal duty to preserve and enhance, and we must be mindful of that when making our decision. And also just to remind you, there are more than one heritage asset to consider here. So as well as the conservation area, and in terms of the design of the building, how it would assimilate into the conservation area and either preserve or enhance its setting, there's also the host dwelling, which is in itself a listed building, and we must consider the setting of that listed building as well. You'll see on page 15 and at the top of page 16 of your report that actually one of the reasons for refusal of the application relates to the foreshortening of the garden of 18 Bridewell Street, and therefore affecting the setting of that listed building itself. So we must also be mindful of all the heritage assets when making our recommendation and decision on this application. I don't know if there's anything that Chris would like to add at this juncture, or whether he'd like to respond to any members' questions moving through the debate.
Yes, Officer Young, do you wish to come in here?
Not to any great extent, Madam Chair. Most of my original comments have been woven into the committee report, and most of my original concerns. I suppose in terms of the host dwelling, it is the foreshortening of the garden. The setting of a heritage asset is basically how an asset is experienced. And the best way, in my view, to experience a listed building is in its original context and with its original garden in place, with its enclosures. So therefore, to drop a new building into that original curtilage, it's very difficult to see that as being positive. So I think that's the primary concern. In terms of the conservation area, yes, Walsingham is a tight-knit and enclosed settlement with close-knit relationships between buildings. I think in this case, it's the fact that the building fills virtually the full width of the available site. And whilst, yes, it does feature some brickwork, it has some brick piers at low level, for the most part, when viewed from outside of the site, it will literally just be a rendered building. Now, Walsingham, yes, you will see examples of render. It's a timber frame settlement, so there's lots of render. There's also a rendered upper story on Rickeldis House opposite. But I think in this case, what's being proposed by virtue of its size and the fact that all you will see is the render potentially will look stark. And I think my concern is that it will actually impose itself within that yard rather than actually be properly assimilated into it.
Thank you. Could you please, I see you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, I'll be coming to members in a minute. Can I just go back to Officer Ashurst? Sarah, could you just explain to the committee the point that I brought out with you before about this less than substantial harm? Because I'm not sure that members of the committee are actually aware what this means. Yes, Officer Doran, do you want to speak now before Sarah replies to me?
I was only going to remind members of the statutory duty, which I could do briefly. Section 66 of the Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act says, in considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting, the local planning authority shall have special regard to the desirability of preserving the building or its setting. And in relation to conservation areas, the local planning authority should pay special attention to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character or appearance of that area. That is a legal duty that you are subject to.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. Sorry, Sarah, if you could just please again, because I'm not sure that all of us as members understand what that means. So if you could repeat what the...
I'll give it my best shot, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. So there are effectively 3 levels of harm that can be found in assessing a planning application. You have substantial harm, which is pretty much tantamount to total loss of a heritage asset. So it's quite specific effectively. At the other end of the scale, you've got no harm, so where there is no harm or a positive benefit. There's 1,000,001 grey areas in the middle, which are referred to as less than substantial harm. So that would cover everything from, something very minimal all the way up to almost substantial harm. So it's quite a large scale that we're considering in that less than substantial harm range effectively. So members must be mindful of the impact of that harm, how it is less than substantial, and we must find public benefits to outweigh that harm. But you can, in your decision making, establish that it is at the lower end of that scale or the higher end of that scale. I don't know if Chris would like to add anything to that for clarity.
No, Officer Young shaking his head. Thank you for that, because I think that is confusing, as we said before. So now I'm going to members. I've got Councillor Mancini-Boyle, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose it's a bit of a strange one, this one for me. I get Officer Ashurst's point about historical bits and pieces around the area. When I first looked at the document sent to us, I was actually quite surprised at how modern all the buildings surrounding this plot actually are. I actually expected quaint cottages and a lot of flint and what have you. And I sort of did a bit of looking online, and as been already mentioned, the building opposite, which is, as far as I can see, are flats, has got a similar type of finish. And also, this type of thing has been going on since 1919. So it's not, I really don't get where people are coming from saying that this is to do with EN4, because their design is subjective. My other points really is I looked through the parish reply, and they said on their reply that a flat roof. Now, I don't see any flat roofs anywhere on this building, and as far as I can see, the pan tiles. And when it comes to the access, if you look at our pamphlet on page, I think it's 51, it shows the property next door has vehicle access as well. And I think if you look opposite, right in the very corner, it looks like a small flinted area. It looks like an opening as well, which I'm assuming may be a garage. So when it comes to the reversing issues and parking, I really don't see that that's an issue. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I must just point out to members that some of the comments that have been made and the comments from Worthington Parish Council were made previously. If you read that Town Council objection, we have actually added in at the bottom, the Council, NNDC, the Parish Council have been reconsulted on the amended plans. So we do know that there's no flat roof and no timber cladding now. Just to point that out. Yes, Officer Ashurst, you wish to come in here?
I just wanted to say that Jane did update with the comments of the Parish Council as a result of that reconsultation, and they maintain 4 objections. So it's overdevelopment, the impact of the design in the conservation area, the loss of amenity space and garden space to number 18 Bridewell Alley, and the access and highways issues. So they are maintaining those 4 objections, just for clarity.
Thank you. Officer Fitch-Tillett, Councillor Fitch-Tillett, Angela.
It's all right, Madam Chairman. It's a difficult morning, isn't it?
It is.
I just wonder how many of these people, colleagues on the planning committee, have got a grade A level in the history of architecture. Because I have, and that's one of the main reasons why I absolutely love being on planning, particularly with something like this. I think we are extremely lucky to have rigorous conservation officers to advise us on this, and I take very seriously our legal duty as explained by our other officers. Now, bit by bit, we could be responsible for having a very sad effect on our heritage assets. Walsingham is an especially special place. It is nationally known, in fact, internationally known. It must be retained. As it is, in the character that it was set up to from the start. And I just have to say, where I'm hearing, well, the buildings around it aren't very special. That is very, very sad, Madam Chairman. However, we should be looking at one single planning application today, this one only, and ignore anything else that may have happened in the detriment to the past. Now, I thoroughly and utterly support the officer's recommendation to keep this special. And the fact it could be subjective is not, because this is a conservation area and it must be kept within the character that is already established over many, many centuries, Madam Chairman. So I will propose that we accept the officer's recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Brown, yes, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the rub of this is the impact on the heritage asset in the listed building that this property, if built, would camouflage entirely from the viewpoint on the street. The question I would ask is how this application has got to this point, because it seems to me that the materials and the design of the dwelling would not satisfy the North Norfolk Design Guide. So my question to the officer, to Chris Young, is has this been covered? And if so, how, as a design with a rendered wall, which would be very stark, adjacent to the street, being allowed, and why hasn't our planning team advised the applicant to modify the application and design the building in more suitable and amenable materials to, as it were, blend in with the area? I think this is a development too far for this particular street, and I second Councillor Fitch-Tillett's proposal to refuse the application in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I've noted your second position. Officer Young, do you wish to reply to Councillor Brown? I did actually think that that the applicants had been asked to modify the rendering, etc., and other proposals, and they decided not to. But anyway, I'll pass to you if you could just clarify that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When the application was originally submitted, it was a mixture of predominantly render with some timber boarding and brickwork at low level on the brick piers. I, in my original comments, commented about the appropriateness of the timber cladding, which has subsequently been dropped, thus resulting in a pretty much entirely rendered finish when viewed from outside of the site. In my latest comments, I have in fact pointed that out and expressed concerns. If you actually stand on Bridewell Street and look down the yard, literally all you see is brick and flint. The building opposite Rakeldis House that's been referred to, yes, it has a rendered section, but it's tucked into an alcove. And unless you actually walk down into Chapel Yard, you don't see that render. So in my latest comments, I did offer a steer towards using more traditional materials, which would help the building assimilate itself into the conservation area.
Thank you, Officer Young. Can I also ask you, because this has been brought up by Mr. Smith in his presentation about providing a uniform frontage in the close, in Chapel Yard, so that there would not be a gap. Is this considered to be substantial. I mean, I personally, and it is my personal view here, nobody else's view, I would have thought a gap would have been seen as beneficial, but I might be entirely wrong. If you could just put me right here.
I think if you think of street scene in its conventional sense, you'd be looking at the frontage of Bridewell Street itself, and you can have, you know, continuous buildings, blocks of buildings, and you can have gaps. What we're talking about here is essentially a yard which is framed by buildings. Yes, there are outbuildings in there, but it's not as I would describe it as a street scene. It's a kind of ad hoc incremental yard development. So I don't view this as a gap site as such. The wall that frames the site is quite a strong enclosure in its own right. So I don't think the building is needed from the point. Some gaps within street scenes, it's beneficial to have a building added. In this case, I don't think adding a building makes a positive contribution in that sort of sense.
Thank you. Thank you. So anybody else wish to comment? Yes, Councillor Kershaw, you would like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the officer for the detailed report. I think it's very well put together. I do have a concern that there is harm being caused here and loss of amenity. I think the reduction of the size of the garden is detrimental. And as Chris Young has spoken, this area provides a welcome open space in what is a very crowded village. I understand that the trees may be past their best, but they do offer some feeling of open space and relief. And I think the placing this building in the garden of number 18 would be detrimental. And I will vote with the officer on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, please, wish to speak before we go to the vote? Of Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to draw everybody's attention to page 43 of the enclosed document for the photos and views. I'm looking at the 3D images, and if I'm looking at that and I'm looking at a disused wasteland behind, I know which of the two I would prefer. I don't think that the trees, the ones that want to be cut down, would be worthy of saving, and they're putting 2 more trees in its place. I think also that, okay, maybe we might be able to change the render. Let's talk to the agent and let's talk to the person, you know, to see if we can get it as a condition to acceptance. I do think that on this one, because it's a second application, I think the person has, whoever it may be, has proved themselves to be flexible. And at the end of the day, if I'm looking at this and I come back to what I say, there's less than substantial harm. I take it as the lower end, not the higher end, taking what Officer Ashurst has said. I do understand that situation. I don't think there's too much to worry about with highways. That's been negated. Walsingham itself is a special place. And obviously this would allow for another building to be put into Walsingham. It does have a red tiled roof, which have a look at the other pictures on there. A lot of the other buildings around it do have. And if I'm looking also, and I'll draw attention to the picture on page, where is it? Hold on. 53. If that is one of the trees that are going to be removed, I'm very grateful that it would be, because it just looks as if it's just about to fall and split the wall into 2. So I will vote against the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Officer Ashurst, you wish to come back?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that this isn't a bit of disused land in the middle of Chapel Yard. This is actually the garden and amenity space for number 18 Bridewell Street. So it is within ownership and the ability of somebody to maintain the garden to a greater standard. But just to clarify, it is not disused land.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak who hasn't spoken? Right, but we'll now go. The vote is the proposer. It's just a minute, let me get here. The recommendation is for refusal, as laid out on page 20, and we have a proposer, Councillor Fitch-Tillett, who proposes to go with the officer's recommendation for refusal and has been seconded by Councillor Andrew Brown. Are we all clear on this? This is for refusal of this application as put forward by the officers. Now,
is this not for acceptance, Pauline, not refusal?
Sorry?
Acceptance. Not for acceptance, not refusal.
I do apologise to you. I must say, I've got the beginnings of a migraine coming over me. So please forgive me if I'm sort of muddling here slightly. So we're going for the vote. So this is for acceptance of the officer's recommendation for refusal. Is that okay, Richard? Have I got it right this time? Good. Right, Emma, could you read out, please?
Yes, Madam Chairman. As before, members, I'll call your names out alphabetically, and if you could indicate whether you are voting for, against, or abstaining. So, Councillor Brown.
For the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Cushing.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Fredericks.
For.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Pearce.
Against.
Councillor Toy.
For.
Councillor Varley.
For.
And Councillor Yassimi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Against.
Right, thank you. And can I just check with Councillor Varley? I know you left the meeting briefly, but you did hear the full discussion of the item, did you? Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Right, I can confirm that we have 9 in favour of the recommendation and 4 against, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So this has been refused as recommended by the officers. Thank you for that. I think that was an interesting discussion, especially the comments by Officer Young about the whole aspect of Walsingham and how these buildings sit within it. I thought that was very interesting. And I must apologise again, because I am beginning to see double of everything. So please forgive me. But we're passing swiftly on now as we finish the main body of the agenda to Sarah, who will now present the appeals section. Thank you, Mr. Smith. You may leave if you wish, or stay for the rest of the meeting. It's entirely up to you. Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so I'll be brief so that you can go and recover. The appeals section is agenda item 9 on page 21 of your papers, members. Section A sets out the new appeals which have been received. These are relatively new, so are yet to go kind of through the process. Section B on page 21 sets out inquiries and hearings. You will note that the Holt application has been increased to a public inquiry, which starts next week on the 20th of October. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. Following this meeting, I've asked Linda Yaram to circulate details of how to register if you wish to attend. Unfortunately, you can't just turn up. We need to get you registered with the Planning Inspectorate, and Linda will circulate details of how to do that for you. You'll also see in terms of Cly, the appeal at Arcadia against the enforcement notice, all parties have submitted our statements to the Inspectorate. We're still awaiting a date and confirmation of the hearing date, and we're also seeking a mediation date as well. And in terms of the Itteringham public inquiry there, it may seem a very small proposal, but it needs to be done as a public inquiry because evidence will need to be given under oath as it relates to a certificate. Just for information, they have also submitted a planning application, which, if approved, may result in the withdrawal of that appeal. Turning over onto page 22 of your agenda, written representations, appeals in hand. Those are the ones which are currently going through the process. You'll see the one at High Kelling for the archery site has been downgraded from a hearing to a written representations procedure. So that will no longer be heard by the inspectorate, and I believe our written submissions have been made. And looking at appeal decisions on pages 22 and 23, 4 of the 5 have been dismissed, which is a really positive result for us. You will note the one at the top, Cly, came before members of this committee. Unfortunately, we've lost the appeal for a temporary permission on that application. The inspectorate did not agree that we needed to allow that for a temporary period only to basically establish any overriding impact on the highway network. So they have granted a permanent approval for that application through that appeal process. However, really positively though, the third one down on page 22 at Hindolveston has been dismissed. Again, that was refused by members of this committee. It was the second application in Hindolveston where we were holding the policy line effectively. We had previously lost an appeal which we disagreed with, which we would, but this appeal has maintained that we should be applying our development plan as it stands, and it should be given full weight in our decision-making processes. So we will continue to hold the line on development in the countryside being unacceptable. So that's everything really to say. At court cases, section E on page 23, there's no change from the previous report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And we now go to item 10 on the agenda. I haven't got any other matters of urgent business. Are there any, Emma?
No, Madam Chairman.
We don't need to exclude press and public at this stage, I don't think, because I'm not sure. I don't believe we have any private business. So no other urgent exempt business and to consider any exempt matters. So we will come to the end of our meeting for today. If Mr. Smith had remained, we could have told him that it was a fairly short meeting. We've committed, oh my goodness, we've finished in 50 minutes, which is, oh no, not quite, just over. So not too bad for today. And please remember that you will be coming back again on, is it the 29th we said? 29th, Reserve Planning Committee. This is for Roughton Road presentation. Is it just that one, Sarah?
I believe so at present, Madam Chair. If there is anything else that we can get through to that committee, then we will. But I believe substantially the agenda has been called for the Roughton Road Cromer application.
Okay. Actually, the more applications we can get through, the better, actually, at this point in time. I haven't got anything down for the 12th of November, but no doubt some will come toddling through. Okay, well, thank you all so very much. And I do apologise once again for being slightly off balance, but I'm okay now. Take my medicine. Dear heavens. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for your attendance. Bye.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye. Hope you feel better soon.
Oh, thank you.